The station called Helix Prime floated in the darkness of space like a massive metal flower. It was home to thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked its corridors. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that changed colors with their moods, and among all these strange and powerful creatures there were humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only been part of the Galactic Coalition for 40 years. That was nothing compared to species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. To most aliens, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Weak, simple, not worth much attention. Knew this very well. She walked through the busy corridor of the station with her head down. She was a small woman with black hair tied back in a simple knot. Her face was calm, almost empty of expression. She wore the gray uniform of a logistics coordinator, one of the lowest positions on the station. Her job was to count supplies, organize shipments, and make sure the right boxes went to the right places. It was boring work. Nobody important ever noticed her. That was exactly how she wanted it. Entered the supply briefing room and took her usual seat in the back corner. The room was filled with aliens from different departments. A tall officer stood at the front. His name was Commander. He had blue-gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that looked down at everyone with cold pride. They were one of the oldest species in the coalition. They believed they were better than everyone else, especially humans. The briefing began. Commander talked about supply routes and delivery schedules. Listened carefully. She noticed a problem with one of the routes. A fuel station along the path had been closed for repairs. If ships followed that route, they would run out of fuel before reaching their destination. She raised her hand. Commander looked at her for a long moment, as if he had just noticed a small insect on his wall. Yes, the human. "Sir, the Theta 7 fuel station is closed," said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Ships on Route 12 will need to use Route 14 instead, or they will not make it." Stared at her. Then he turned back to his screen without a word. He continued the briefing as if she had not spoken at all. Lowered her hand. She did not argue. She did not complain. She simply made a note in her personal tablet. When those ships ran into trouble later, she would be ready to fix the problem. After the briefing, walked to the cafeteria to get her lunch. The food was not good, but it was free for station workers. She took her tray and looked for an empty table. Most tables had groups of aliens talking and laughing together. None of them looked at her. None of them invited her to sit. She found a small table in the corner and sat alone. A few minutes later, a scientist named walked past with her friends. Were thin beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. They considered themselves very intelligent and very cultured. Often made jokes about humans when she thought they could not hear her. Today, she did not bother to lower her voice. "I still do not understand why humans are even in the coalition," said to her friends. "They have no special technology. They have no psychic abilities. They cannot even live more than 80 or 90 years. What do they contribute?" One of her friends laughed. "Perhaps they are here for entertainment, like pets." They all laughed as they walked away. Continued eating. Her face showed nothing. But under the table, her hand tightened around her spoon for just a moment. Then she relaxed and took another bite. Later that afternoon was checking inventory in a storage bay when footsteps approached. She looked up to see Wu, a young human engineer. He was one of the few humans on the station, and one of even fewer who ever talked to her. He had a kind face and a quick smile, though right now he looked angry. "I heard what's said in the cafeteria," he said. "Does that not make you angry? Why do you never say anything back to them?" Put down her tablet and looked at him. "What would I say?" "I do not know, something, anything. Tell them they are wrong. Tell them humans are not weak." "Would they believe me?" Wu opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew the answer. No, they would not believe her. They would just laugh more. Picked up her tablet again. "Words mean nothing," she said quietly. "Actions do." Wu sighed. You are too patient. I could not stay so calm if they treated me like that every day. You learn to be calm, she said. You learn or you break. There was something in her voice, something old and heavy. Wu looked at her more closely. He had always thought was just a quiet, ordinary woman, but sometimes, in moments like this, he felt like he was seeing only the surface of a very deep ocean. Before he could say anything else, a sharp alarm rang through the station. Red lights flashed on the walls. Both humans stopped and looked up. "Attention all personnel," a voice announced over the speakers. "This is a code yellow alert. An unknown fleet has been detected approaching Coalition space. All department heads report to the command center. All other personnel remain at your stations and await further instructions." Wu's eyes went wide. An unknown fleet, what does that mean? His face did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. Something cold and sharp woke up behind them. "It means trouble," she said. All around the station, aliens began to move quickly, talking in worried voices. Officers shouted orders. Civilians asked frightened questions, but stood very still in the storage bay, her tablet held loosely in her hands. She had heard alarms like this before, long ago, on a different world, in a different life. She had hoped she would never hear them again. But hope, she had learned, was a weak thing. It broke easily. What kept you alive was not hope. It was preparation. It was focus. It was the cold, quiet part of yourself that knew exactly what to do when everything fell apart. Put down her tablet and walked toward the door. Whatever was coming, she would be ready. She always was. The station was filled with nervous energy. Aliens hurried through the corridors with worried faces. Officers held meetings behind closed doors. Everyone was asking the same question: who was coming, and what did they want? Did not ask questions, she worked. The logistics department had been given emergency orders. If the station needed to evacuate, supplies had to be ready. Food, water, medicine, fuel, everything had to be organized and prepared for quick transport. Most of the alien workers were panicking. They argued with each other. They made mistakes. They wasted time. Did none of these things. She moved through the chaos like water flowing around stones. Her hands were steady as she sorted supplies. Her voice was calm as she gave instructions to confused workers. Within 2 hours, she had organized the entire emergency supply system. Every box was labeled. Every route was planned. Every ship knew exactly what it would carry and where it would go. The scientist was also working in the logistics area. Her department had been asked to help because of the emergency, but she had no experience with this kind of work. She tried to create her own organization system, ignoring completely. "This is simple," said loudly to the other workers. "We will sort everything by weight. Heavy items first, light items last. It is the most logical way." Said nothing, she continued her own work. 2 hours later, system collapsed. Ships could not find the supplies they needed. Medical equipment was buried under boxes of machine parts. Food was mixed with fuel containers. Everything was a mess. Commander stormed into the logistics bay, his 4 arms waving with anger. "What is happening here? Why is nothing ready?" Pointed at the chaos. "The system is too complicated. We need more time." "We do not have more time," growled. "The fleet will be here in 6 hours." Stepped forward. "Sir, I have an alternative system ready. Section C through F are fully organized. If we move the remaining supplies there, everything will be prepared within 1 hour. Looked at her with surprise. He had forgotten she existed. "You did this, the human?" "Yes, sir." Was silent for a moment. His pride did not want to accept help from a human, but he had no choice. The emergency was real. "Fine, use her system. Everyone follow the human's plan." Silver face turned dark with embarrassment. She said nothing, but her eyes burned with anger as she watched take control. Within the hour, everything was ready. Ships were loaded. Routes were clear. The evacuation system was prepared, inspected the work and found no problems. He nodded once, then left without thanking. He would later report to his superiors that the logistics team had done excellent work. He would not mention her name. Did not care about credit. She cared about results. That night sat alone in her small room. It was a tiny space with just a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out at the stars. She had no decorations, no photographs, no personal items except for a single old book on her desk. She could not sleep. The alarm had awakened something inside her. Memories she had tried to bury were floating back to the surface. She closed her eyes and saw fire. A city burning, buildings falling, the sound of explosions that never stopped. She was younger then, thinner. Her uniform was torn and covered with blood, not her blood, someone else's. She was carrying a child through the smoke, trying to find shelter, trying to find safety, trying to find anything that was not death. "Stay with me," she heard herself saying. "Stay with me, we are almost there." But they were not almost there. They were nowhere. They were lost in a hell that stretched in every direction. Opened her eyes. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her legs until they stopped. That was a long time ago, a different life. She was not that soldier anymore. She was just a logistics coordinator, a quiet woman who counted boxes and organized supplies. That was all. That was all she wanted to be. The next morning, Wu found her in the corridor. He looked tired, like he had not slept well either. "Did you hear the news?" he asked. "They identified the fleet." "Who are they?" Wu's face was pale. Stopped walking. For a moment her calm mask cracked, just a little, just enough for Wu to see something flash in her eyes. Fear. No, not fear, recognition. "You know about them?" he asked. "I know about them," she said quietly. "Everyone in the coalition knows about them. They destroyed 3 worlds 30 years ago, killed billions of beings. The coalition finally pushed them back to the outer regions, but they were never defeated completely. And now they are coming here." "Yes." Wu rubbed his face with his hands. "What do we do? I am just an engineer. I fix machines. I do not know how to fight." Looked at him. He was young, 25, maybe 26. He had probably never seen real violence in his life. He had grown up in a peaceful time, on a peaceful station, doing peaceful work. He had no idea what was coming. "You do your job," she said. "You fix the machines that need fixing. You help where you can help. And you trust that others will do what needs to be done." "Others? What others? Have you seen the officers here? Commander has never fought a real battle. None of them have. The coalition has been at peace for decades. Started walking again. Then they will learn or they will die. That is how war works." Wu hurried to catch up with her. As he walked beside her, he noticed something. Sleeve had moved up a little, showing her forearm. There were scars there, old scars, rough and uneven, like they had healed without proper medical care. He said slowly, "Those scars on your arm, where did you get them?" Pulled her sleeve down quickly. Her face was calm again, but her movements were sharp. "An accident, long ago." "What kind of accident?" She did not answer. She just kept walking, faster now, leaving him behind. Wu stood in the corridor and watched her go. He thought about her scars. He thought about the way she moved through the chaos yesterday, so calm, so controlled. He thought about the look in her eyes when he mentioned the "Who was really?" He had a feeling he would find out soon. In the command center, the main screen showed the approaching fleet. Dozens of ships, dark and sharp, like knives cutting through the stars. They would arrive in less than 2 hours. High Counselor, an old diplomat with gray-green skin and wise eyes, watched the screen with a troubled expression. He had lived through the First War. He remembered the death, the destruction, the terror. He looked around the command center at the young officers who had never known such things. They were confident. They believed the station's defenses would protect them. They believed everything would be fine. Knew better. Somewhere on this station, he thought, there must be someone who understands what is coming, someone who has seen war, someone who can help us survive. He did not know yet that such a person existed, that she was working quietly in the logistics bay, counting supplies and organizing evacuation routes, that she had buried more friends than anyone in this room had ever known. But he would learn. They all would. The first explosion hit without warning. Was in the logistics bay when the station shook. She grabbed a metal shelf to keep her balance. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Around her, alien workers fell to the ground or stumbled into walls. Then the second explosion came, and the third. The main screen in the bay crackled to life. Commander's face appeared, but he looked nothing like the proud officer had seen before. His blue-gray skin was pale. His eyes were wide with confusion. "All personnel," he said, his voice shaking. "We are under attack. They have disabled our main shields. They are firing on the station. All combat teams report to defensive positions. All civilians move to the inner shelters immediately." The screen went dark. For a moment, nobody moved. The alien workers looked at each other with frozen faces. They had never experienced anything like this. They did not know what to do. Then someone screamed, and the panic began. Aliens ran in every direction. They pushed each other. They fell over boxes. They cried out in fear and confusion. A worker crashed into a shelf, knocking supplies everywhere. A technician stood completely still, paralyzed by shock. Did not panic. She did not run. She watched the chaos for exactly 3 seconds, reading the situation. Then she moved. "Everyone stop," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise like a blade. Something in her tone made people freeze and look at her. "Panicking will get you killed. Follow me. Stay close. Stay quiet." She did not wait for them to agree. She simply started walking toward the emergency exit. After a moment of hesitation, the workers followed her. They had no better plan. They had no plan at all. Another explosion rocked the station. The floor tilted. A pipe burst overhead, spraying hot steam. Pushed a young worker out of the way just before the steam hit him. She did not slow down. "This way," she said. "The main corridors will be blocked. We use the maintenance tunnels." A worker frowned. "Maintenance tunnels? I did not know there were tunnels." "Most people do not know. That is why they are safe." Led them through a small door hidden behind a stack of storage containers. The tunnel beyond was narrow and dark, lit only by small emergency lights along the floor. The group moved in single file, with at the front. Behind them, they could hear explosions, screams, and the terrible sound of metal tearing apart. In the command center, things were falling apart. Commander shouted orders, but nobody was listening. Officers ran back and forth, arguing with each other. The defense systems were failing. The ships were too fast, too powerful. Every solution tried made things worse. "Fire the secondary cannons," he yelled. "Sir, the secondary cannons are offline. The first attack damaged the power systems." "Then use the backup power." "The backup power is being used for life support." Slammed his 4 fists on the console. "This is impossible. How can they be so strong?" High Counselor stood near the back of the command center, watching quietly. He had seen this before. Young officers who had trained for war but never fought it. They knew the theory. They had passed all their tests, but theory meant nothing when real death was flying toward you. The scientist was in the command center too. She had come to deliver a report, but now she was trapped. She pressed herself against the wall, her silver skin turning pale gray with fear. Her large eyes were wet with tears. "We are going to die," she whispered. "We are all going to die." Looked at her with pity. They had been peaceful for over 1,000 years. They had evolved past violence, past conflict, past fear, or so they believed. But fear was not something you could evolve past. It lived deep inside every living thing. It was waiting, always waiting. Another explosion shook the station. On the main screen could see ships firing again and again. And then he saw something else, something worse. "Commander," he said, "look at screen 7. Turned, his face went pale. On screen 7, a ship was attaching itself to the station. Doors were opening, figures were coming out, dozens of them, then hundreds. "Boarding parties," said quietly. "They are coming inside." There were tall, powerful creatures covered in dark red armor. They had 4 legs and 2 massive arms ending in claws. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. Each one carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They moved through the station like a flood. Security teams tried to stop them, but they were too strong, too fast. Coalition soldiers fell one after another. The defenders had trained, but they had trained for peace, for patrols, for checking identification cards. They had not trained for war. They had trained for nothing else. In the maintenance tunnels, heard the fighting above. She knew what it meant. She stopped and turned to the group behind her. "Stay here," she said. "Do not move. Do not make any sound. I will come back for you." "Where are you going?" asked Wu. He had joined the group somewhere along the way. His face was smeared with dust and sweat. Did not answer. She moved down the tunnel toward a ladder that led to the upper level. As she climbed, she passed a dead security officer lying on the floor. He had been killed by the explosion. His weapon lay beside him. Picked up the weapon. She checked it quickly and automatically. Magazine full. Safety off. Sights aligned. Her hands moved with perfect memory, like a musician picking up an instrument they had not played in years. Wu had followed her. He saw her holding the weapon and his eyes went wide. "What are you doing? You are a logistics coordinator." Looked at him, her face was different now. The quiet, patient woman was gone. In her place was someone else, someone harder, someone colder. "I was many things before I was a logistics coordinator," she said. She climbed the ladder and disappeared into the darkness above. Counselor was still in the command center when the door burst open. 3 soldiers entered, weapons raised. Officers screamed and dove for cover. Reached for a gun, but he was too slow. A struck him across the face, sending him crashing to the floor. Closed his eyes and prepared to die. Then he heard something strange, a soft sound like a whisper, then a wet thud, then another. He opened his eyes. The 3 soldiers were on the ground, dead. Standing over them was a small human woman with black hair and empty eyes. She held a weapon in one hand and a knife in the other. The knife was covered in blood. Recognized her, the logistics worker, the quiet one. What was her name? She looked at him, and he felt a chill run down his spine. He had looked into the eyes of warriors, diplomats, and killers. He knew what death looked like when it walked in human form. Turned away without speaking. She moved to the command console and began checking the screens, reading information at a speed that seemed impossible. Commander was getting back to his feet, blood running from his face. He stared at like she was a ghost. "You," he said. "How did you? What are you?" "Save your questions," said. "More are coming. We need to secure this room and establish communication with any remaining defense teams. Can you do that, Commander? Or should I do it myself?" Opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He had no words. The woman he had ignored, dismissed, and insulted was now standing in front of him like a general addressing a recruit. Stepped forward. "We will do whatever you say. Tell us what you need." Nodded once. "Good, then listen carefully. We do not have much time." Outside, the sounds of battle continued. They were coming. But for the first time since the attack began, Counselor felt something he had not expected. Hope. The command center became a war room in minutes. Stood at the center console, her eyes moving across multiple screens at once. Her hands flew over controls she had never officially been trained to use, but she operated them like she had done it 1,000 times. Around her, officers and staff watched in stunned silence. This was not the quiet logistics worker they had ignored for months. This was someone else entirely. "Commander," she said without turning around, "how many security teams are still active?" Wiped the blood from his face with shaking hands. I am not certain. Communications are damaged. Maybe 12 teams, maybe less." "Contact them. All of them. Tell them to fall back to Section D. We will create a defensive line there." "Fall back? We should be attacking. We should be pushing them out." Turned and looked at him. Her eyes were cold and steady. "They have superior numbers and superior weapons. If your teams attack them directly, they will die. All of them. Is that what you want, Commander?" Had no answer. His pride burned, but he knew she was right. He had seen his soldiers fall like grass before a fire. "Defensive positions," continued. "Narrow corridors. We make them come to us. We use the environment. Do you understand?" Yes, I understand." "Good, give the orders now." Moved to the communication panel and began calling his remaining teams. Counselor watched with deep curiosity. Her transformation was remarkable. She moved differently. She spoke differently. She stood differently. It was like watching a mask fall away to reveal the true face beneath. "Where did you learn all this?" asked quietly. Did not look at him. "Somewhere far from here, a long time ago." "Will you tell me more?" "After we survive, ask me then." She turned to the door. "I am going to Section D. The defensive line needs to be set up properly. Can you manage things here, Counselor?" Nodded. "I may be old, but I am not useless. Go, do what you need to do." Left the command center and moved quickly through the damaged corridors. She passed broken walls, sparking wires and bodies. Some were coalition soldiers. Some were. She did not stop to look at them. There was no time. She found a group of security officers hiding in an alcove. They were young, scared, and had no idea what to do. When they saw her, they raised their weapons nervously. "Hold your fire," she said calmly. "I am on your side." "Who are you?" one of them asked. "Someone who is going to help you stay alive. Follow me." She led them to a corridor intersection in Section D. It was perfect for defense. 3 narrow passages, all leading to one central point. An enemy could only approach from limited directions. With proper positioning, a small force could hold off a much larger one. "You 3 take the left passage. Stay behind cover. Do not fire until you see them clearly. You waste ammunition, you die." She turned to the others. "You 2 right passage. Same rules. I will take the center." "What about the ceiling vents?" one officer asked. "Can they come through there?" Looked up. The officer was smart. That was good. "Yes, they can." She pulled out her knife and cut some wiring from a damaged panel. "We will create a trap. If anyone drops from those vents, they will get a nasty surprise." She worked quickly, connecting wires to create a simple electrical trap. It would not kill but it would stun them long enough for someone to finish the job. The officers watched her with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like this. "How do you know how to do all this?" one of them whispered. Finished the trap and stood up. "Experience." Before she could say more, the sounds of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. They were coming. "Positions," said quietly. "Remember what I told you. Wait for clear shots. Make every bullet count." She crouched behind a broken console, her weapon raised. Her breathing was slow and even. Her heart was steady. She had been here before. Different place, different enemy, but the same darkness, the same death waiting around the corner. The first appeared. It was huge, its red armor gleaming in the emergency lights. Its yellow eyes scanned the corridor, searching for targets. Waited. 2 more appeared behind it, then 3 more. 6 enemies, 5 defenders, bad numbers, but she had faced worse. The lead stepped onto the section of floor where had loosened some panels earlier. The floor gave way, and the creature stumbled, losing its balance for just a second. Now shouted. 5 weapons fired at once. The lead fell, its armor pierced in multiple places. The second one tried to raise its weapon, but shot it twice in the head before it could fire. The third and fourth were cut down by the officers in the side passages. The fifth and sixth retreated, roaring with anger, but they would be back, and they would bring more. Good said, reload. They will return in 2 minutes, maybe less. One of the officers was breathing hard. How did you know about the floor panels? How did you know they would step there? They are heavy. They walk on the center of corridors for balance. It is predictable. Ejected her empty magazine and inserted a new one. Everything is predictable if you pay attention. The next wave came faster than expected. 8 this time, moving more carefully. They had learned from the first attack, but had already adjusted. She had moved to a different position, found a new angle. When they focused on the center corridor, she fired from the side, catching them off guard. The battle was brutal and bloody. One of the coalition officers was hit by fire and went down screaming. Another was struck by a claw that tore through his armor like paper, but kept fighting. She moved like water, flowing from cover to cover, firing with perfect accuracy. A soldier charged directly at her. She dropped her gun and met it head-on. Her knife flashed. She ducked under its massive arms and drove the blade into the gap between its helmet and chest armor. The creature gurgled and fell. Pulled the knife free and picked up her gun again. Her hands were covered in blood. Her face was splattered with it, but her expression had not changed. Her eyes were still cold, still focused. Wu had arrived during the fighting, carrying a box of ammunition he had found somewhere. He stood at the edge of the corridor, frozen in shock. He watched kill another with a combination of gunfire and hand-to-hand combat that seemed impossible. When the last enemy fell, turned and saw him. For a moment something flickered in her eyes, something almost like pain. Then it was gone. "You brought ammunition," she said. "Good, we need it." Wu's voice was barely a whisper. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" She did not answer. She walked past him and began checking the fallen officers. One was dead. The other was badly wounded but would survive if they got him medical attention. "Help me move him," she said. "There is a medical station 2 corridors back." Wu helped her lift the wounded officer. As they carried him, he could not stop looking at her. The woman he thought he knew was gone. In her place was a warrior, a killer, someone who belonged on a battlefield, not in a logistics bay. Who was she? What had happened to her? What secrets was she hiding? In the command center, Counselor was asking the same questions. He had accessed the coalition database and searched for information on. Most of her file was blocked, classified at the highest level by human military authorities. That alone told him something important. Ordinary logistics workers did not have classified files. He dug deeper. He used his authority as a high counselor to request access to restricted information. Most requests were, but one fragment slipped through, a reference to something called the 60 Days of Soul. Did not know what it meant, but he intended to find out. Behind him, the screens showed the battle continuing throughout the station. Forces were being pushed back in some areas, holding in others. It was chaos. It was death. It was war. And at the center of it all was a small human woman who had been invisible just yesterday. Leaned back in his chair and thought about what he had seen. The way she moved. The way she killed. The way she controlled her fear and used it like a weapon. Humans, he thought, what are they really? He was afraid he was about to find out. While the battle raged on the station, Counselor sat alone in a secure communications room. The sounds of explosions and gunfire were distant here, muffled by thick walls. He had more important work to do than fight. He needed answers. He activated the emergency diplomatic channel and sent a signal to Earth's military command. The response took several minutes. When it came, a face appeared on the screen. A human woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She wore a uniform covered in medals and ribbons that meant nothing to, but clearly meant a great deal to humans. "I am Admiral Bora," she said. Her voice was calm and controlled. "You are counselor of the delegation, I know you. What do you want?" "I want information, Admiral, about one of your people." "Which one?" "A woman named. She works on the station as a logistics coordinator, but I believe she is much more than that." Admiral Bora's face did not change but saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, caution. "Why do you want to know about her?" "Because she is currently saving this station. I watched her kill 3 soldiers in the command center. I watched her take command of our defense when our own officers could not. She moves like a predator. She fights like a warrior born, and her personnel file is classified at your highest military level." Leaned forward. "Who is she, Admiral? What are you hiding?" Bora was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. "What I am about to tell you is restricted information. Humanity has kept certain aspects of our history private since we joined the coalition. We had our reasons." "I do not care about your reasons. I care about the survival of everyone on this station. Tell me the truth." Bora nodded slowly. "Very well, but understand, counselor, after you learn this, you cannot unlearn it, and you may not look at humans the same way again." She pressed some controls on her console. Files began appearing on screen. Documents, photographs, video recordings. He began to read. "Before first contact with the coalition," Bora said, "Earth was not a peaceful world. We were not innocent explorers reaching for the stars. We were survivors. Survivors of what we call the last human war." The documents showed images that made stomach turn. Cities in flames, fields covered with dead bodies, mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. The numbers were staggering. 12 years of global conflict. Over 2 billion dead. Entire regions of the planet made uninhabitable. "Humans did this," whispered, "to yourselves." "Yes, we fought over resources, over territory, over ideologies that seem meaningless now. We nearly destroyed our entire species. By the time the war ended, we had learned every way there is to kill, every tactic, every weapon, every form of cruelty." Bora's voice was heavy with old shame. "We are not peaceful by nature, counselor. We are peaceful by choice, because we learned what war truly costs." Looked at more photographs. Soldiers with hollow eyes, children with missing limbs, cities that were nothing but rubble and ash. It was horrifying. It was beyond anything the coalition had ever experienced. And he asked, "What does she have to do with this?" Bora's face became even more serious. The war's final battle happened in a city called Seoul. It was the most brutal urban combat in human history. The enemy sent 40,000 soldiers to take the city. The defending force was only 800. 800 against 40,000. That is suicide. It should have been, but one unit, 200 soldiers of the 7th Seoul Defense Brigade, refused to retreat. They held their position for 60 days. No reinforcements, limited supplies, surrounded by enemies who wanted them dead. Bora paused. "We call it the 60 Days of Seoul. When reinforcements finally arrived, only 23 defenders were still alive. Lieutenant was one of them." Felt cold, he understood now. The way she moved, the way she killed, the emptiness in her eyes. She had survived something that would break most beings. She had walked through hell and somehow come out the other side. "Why did she leave the military?" he asked. "With skills like hers, she would be valuable." She did not want to be valuable. After the war, she asked for a discharge. She said she wanted to be ordinary. She wanted to count boxes and organize supplies and never hold a weapon again. Bora's expression softened slightly. "We owed her too much to refuse, so we let her disappear. New identity, new life. We hoped she would find peace." "But peace has not found her." "No, it seems not." Requested access to additional files. After some hesitation, Bora granted it. He began watching combat footage from the 60 Days of Seoul. The video was grainy and damaged, recorded by helmet cameras during the fighting. Watched soldiers fighting in destroyed buildings. He watched explosions tear through streets. He watched humans dying, killing, and dying again. Then he saw her. A younger, maybe 23 or 24. She was thin almost to the point of starvation. Her uniform was torn and covered with dried blood. She was carrying another soldier over her shoulder, a man who had lost most of his leg, and running through a street filled with enemy fire. Bullets struck the ground around her. An explosion threw debris at her head. But she did not stop. She did not slow down. She ran through the fire and smoke like it was not even there. "Stay with me," she was saying. "Stay with me. Do not die. I will not let you die." She reached a bunker and pulled the wounded man inside. Only then did she collapse against the wall, breathing hard. Her eyes were empty, not tired, not afraid, just empty, like she had already seen everything the universe could show her. Stop the video. He could not watch anymore. She was 22 years old in that footage, Bora said quietly. She saved the life of that soldier. His name was Sung-ho. He still walks with a prosthetic leg. He named his daughter after her. How many lives did she save during those 60 days? We do not know exactly. The records are incomplete, but estimates suggest at least 40 direct rescues, probably more. Sat back in his chair. He thought about the woman he had seen in the command center, the cold efficiency, the perfect control. Now he understood. She was not cold because she did not feel. She was cold because she felt too much. She had built walls around herself to survive, to function, to keep moving forward when everything inside her was broken. "What do you want me to do with this information?" he asked. "Nothing. I tell you this only so you understand what you are dealing with is not just a soldier. She is a survivor of the worst humanity has to offer. If she is fighting for your station, then you have a chance. But do not push her too hard. Do not remind her too much of what she was. The woman who counts boxes is the woman she wants to be. The soldier is the woman she had to be." "I understand." Bora nodded. "I hope the coalition survives this, counselor, and I hope finds peace someday. She has earned it more than anyone I know." The communication ended. Sat in the dark room thinking about what he had learned. Humans, they seemed so weak, so small, so simple. The coalition had looked at them with pity and amusement. We thought they were children among elders, he thought. But they were not children. They were survivors. They had walked through fire that would destroy any other species. And they had come out the other side not angry, not vengeful, but determined to be better. They had chosen peace not because they were weak, but because they knew exactly how strong they could be. That, realized, was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. He stood up and left the communications room. The sounds of battle were growing closer. They were pushing forward again. He needed to get back to the command center. As he walked through the corridor, he passed a window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow sun, home to a species that had nearly destroyed itself and then built something new from the ashes. We underestimated them, thought, all of us, every species in the coalition. He hoped they would have a chance to apologize. In Section D was still fighting. She did not know about research. She did not know her secrets were being uncovered. She only knew that enemies were coming and people needed to be protected. That was enough. That was all she needed to know. Her past could wait. The present demanded everything she had. The commander was called. He stood on the bridge of his warship looking at the damaged space station on the... His yellow eyes burned with frustration. The attack should have been simple. The coalition was weak. Their soldiers were soft. Victory should have taken hours. Instead, his forces were dying. Boarding parties were being cut down in the corridors. His best warriors were falling to traps and ambushes. Someone on that station knew how to fight. "Open a channel to the station," growled. I wish to speak with their commander. The communication link crackled to life. Commander's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and afraid, but he tried to hide it. I am Commander, what do you want? Laughed, it was an ugly sound. I want your surrender, you cannot win this fight. Your station is crippled. Your soldiers are weak. Surrender now and I will make your deaths quick. Resist and I will make them slow. Before could respond, another figure stepped into view. A small human woman with black hair and cold eyes. Had never seen her before, but something about her made him pause. There was no fear in her face, no uncertainty. She looked at him like she had seen his kind before, like she was not impressed. Who are you? Demanded. The woman spoke and her voice was calm and clear. My name is, I am a lieutenant of the 7th Soul Defense Brigade. I am a survivor of the 60 days, and I am the one who has been killing your soldiers. Stared at her. The words meant nothing to him. Soul, the 60 days, these were human terms he did not know, but the way she spoke them like they were weapons made him uncomfortable. You are a human, he said. Your species is weak. You have no history of war. You are children playing at combat. Smiled. It was a small smile with no warmth in it at all. That is what everyone believes, but they are wrong. Humans are not strangers to war. We are not new to killing. Before we joined the coalition, we spent 12 years destroying ourselves. We burned our cities. We poisoned our lands. We invented weapons that could end all life on our world. We killed 2 billion of our own kind. The bridge of ship went quiet. The crew members exchanged uncertain glances. You lie, said, but his voice was less confident now. I do not lie, I was there. I fought in our war. I killed and bled and watched my friends die one by one. I survived 60 days of combat against impossible odds with no food, no rest, no hope. And at the end of it, I was still standing. Leaned closer to the camera. Do you know what that taught me? It taught me that there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than a human with nothing left to lose. Felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. Not the fear of death. He had faced that many times. This was different. This was the fear of the unknown. The fear of something that did not behave the way it should. We came to the stars not because we are peaceful, continued. We came because we chose peace. We buried our weapons. We stopped our killing. We decided to be better, but that does not mean we forgot how to fight. It means we remember exactly what fighting costs. She paused. Her eyes were like ice. I am offering you one chance to withdraw. Take your ships and leave. Do not come back. If you refuse, I will destroy every soldier you send into this station. I will make you pay for every life you have taken. And when your fleet is broken and your warriors are dead, you will understand what humans truly are. His crew was watching him. He could feel their eyes. He could not show weakness. He could not back down from a challenge, especially not from a human. You are one woman, he said. You cannot defeat an army. I held a city for 60 days with 200 soldiers against 40,000 enemies. Your army is nothing compared to that. His voice did not change. I am giving you a choice. Choose wisely. The communication link went dead. Stood in silence for a long moment. His officers waited for orders. None of them spoke. Continue the attack, he finally said. She is bluffing. No species is that strong. But even as he gave the order, doubt gnawed at his mind. Back on the station, turned away from the communication console. Counselor was standing behind her. He had heard everything. That was quite a speech, he said. It was not a speech, it was the truth. I know, I learned about the 60 days, about your war, about what humanity really is. Looked at her with new eyes. I am sorry for how we treated your kind. We did not understand. No one understands until they have to. Checked her weapon. The will not retreat. Their commander is too proud. We need to prepare for their next assault. What do you need? Everyone who can fight, every weapon we have, and permission to coordinate the defense. Nodded, you have it. Commander has already agreed to follow your lead. Agreed. He saw you kill that squad leader with your bare hands. I think it changed his perspective. Almost smiled, almost. She gathered the remaining defenders, a mix of humans and aliens. In Section D there were about 50 of them. Not many, but they were all she had. Listen to me, she said. They are coming in force. They will try to overwhelm us with numbers. We cannot match their strength, so we will not try. Instead, we will use the station against them. Narrow corridors, traps. We will make them fight for every meter. She drew a map on a data screen showing positions and movements. The defenders watched closely. Some of them were scared. Some were uncertain, but all of them listened. I will not lie to you, said. Some of us will die today, but if we fight smart, if we fight together, we can win. Not because we are stronger than them, because we refuse to break. Wu raised his hand. What if they send too many? What if we cannot hold? Looked at him. Then we make them pay so much for victory that they never try again. We show them that attacking the coalition comes at a price they cannot afford. The words hung in the air, heavy, true. The defenders took their positions, stood at the center of the line. Her weapon was ready. Her mind was clear. She had done this before. She could do it again. They came in waves, 50 at first, then 100, then more. They poured into the corridors like a flood of red armor and glowing eyes. The sound of gunfire filled the station. His plan worked. The narrow corridors turned these numbers against them. They could only attack a few at a time. The defenders cut them down from covered positions. Traps exploded. Ambushes struck from unexpected angles. But they kept coming. They were willing to lose 10 soldiers to kill 1 defender, and slowly the line began to crack. Fought like a demon. She was everywhere at once, plugging gaps, covering retreats, killing any that got too close. Her hands were slick with blood. Her body was covered with cuts and bruises, but she did not stop. A massive warrior broke through the line. It was the squad leader, larger than the others, with scars covering its armor. It saw and charged directly at her. She dropped her gun, no time to reload, and met it head-on. It swung a clawed fist at her head. She ducked and drove her knife into its leg. The creature roared and grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Could not breathe. Her vision was going dark, but her hands kept moving. She pulled a second knife from her belt and plunged it into the gap in the creature's helmet. The shuddered and dropped her. She fell to the ground, gasping for air. The squad leader collapsed beside her, dead. The remaining saw their leader fall. They hesitated. Then slowly they began to retreat. Tried to stand. Her legs would not work. She tried again, failed again. The wound in her side, an old wound from the 60 days, had reopened. Blood was soaking through her uniform. Wu rushed to her side. You are hurt. I am fine, she said, but her voice was weak. Her vision was blurring. No, you are not. We need to get you to medical. She grabbed his arm. The line, hold the line. We will hold it, I promise, but you have to let us help you now. Looked at him, at his young, frightened, determined face. He reminded her of the soldiers she had fought with in Seoul, the ones who had died so that others could live. Seoul held, she whispered, and so will we. Then she collapsed and everything went dark. The light was too bright. Opened her eyes slowly, wincing at the white ceiling above her. She was lying in a bed, a medical bed, judging by the machines beeping softly around her. The air smelled clean and sterile. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then the memories came flooding back. The battle, the blood and fire and death. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her side. She gasped and fell back against the pillow. Do not move, a familiar voice. Wu appeared at her bedside, his face tired but relieved. The doctor said you almost died. That wound was worse than you let anyone see. The station said, her voice was rough. What happened? The retreated, not just from the station, from the entire system. Their fleet is gone. closed her eyes. Relief washed over her like warm water. Casualties. 32 dead, 71 wounded. It could have been much worse. Wu paused. Everyone is saying you saved us, all of us. I did not do it alone. No, but without you, we would not have survived the first hour. Opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling. She thought about the 32 who had died, 32 names she would learn, 32 faces she would remember. They would join the others in her mind, the long list of people she could not save. How long was I unconscious? 3 days. They had to operate on you twice. That old wound, Wu hesitated. The doctors said it was at least 10 years old, and it had never healed properly, like you did not get real medical treatment when it happened. There was no time for real medical treatment. There was only survival. Wu was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I know about soul. Counselor told me. He told everyone. Turned her head to look at him. Her expression was unreadable. Everything. Enough about your war, about the 60 days, about what you did. His eyes were wet. Why did you never tell anyone? Why did you let them treat you like you were nothing? Because I did not want to be a soldier anymore. I wanted to be nothing. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to live a quiet life where nobody expected anything from me except counting boxes and organizing supplies. She looked away. I was tired, Wu, so tired of being strong, so tired of carrying everything. But you did it anyway. When we needed you, you became a soldier again. I did not have a choice. Yes, you did. You could have hidden, you could have run, but you chose to fight. You chose to protect people who had never shown you any kindness. Wu reached out and took her hand. That is not nothing, that is everything. She did not respond, but she did not pull her hand away either. Over the next few days, slowly recovered. She had visitors, more visitors than she had ever had in her life. Security officers who had fought beside her came to say thank you. Medical staff who had heard the stories came to meet her. Even some of the alien species she had saved came to offer their gratitude. Commander came on the 4th day. He stood awkwardly at the door of her room, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. The proud officer who had dismissed her for months now looked uncertain, nervous, almost ashamed. May I enter? He asked. Nodded. He approached her bed slowly. For a long moment he did not speak. Then, in a gesture did not recognize, he bowed his head deeply, all 4 of his hands pressed together in front of his chest. This is a gesture, he said quietly. We use it only for those we truly respect, for heroes, for warriors, for those who have proven their worth beyond all doubt. Did not know what to say. She had expected many things from anger, perhaps, resentment that a human had shown him up, but not this, not respect. I was wrong about your kind, continued. I was wrong about you. I looked at your small bodies and short lives and soft skin, and I thought you were weak. I did not understand that strength is not about size. It is about will, about heart, about refusing to break when everything is trying to break you. He raised his head and met her eyes. I am sorry, truly sorry. Looked at him for a long time, then she nodded. Thank you, Commander, that means more than you know. Turned and left. As he passed through the door, saw standing outside the scientist who had mocked humans in the cafeteria, who had called them pets. She was holding something in her hands, a small box wrapped in silver paper. Did not enter the room. She could not meet eyes. She simply placed the box on the table by the door and walked away without a word. When opened it later, she found a crystal inside, a precious stone that her people gave only to those they deeply admired. There was no note. None was needed. A week after the battle, the Coalition Assembly held an emergency session. High Counselor stood before representatives from dozens of species. The hall was packed. Everyone wanted to hear about the attack and how the station had survived. Fellow counselors, began. We have all heard the reports. We know that a small human woman led our defense when our own officers could not. We know she saved hundreds of lives through her courage and skill. But there is something else you need to know. something about humans that we have never understood. He activated the images appeared images of Earth's last human war, burning cities, mass graves, weapons of terrible destruction. The assembly hall went silent. Before joining the coalition, humanity nearly destroyed themselves in a global war. Over 12 years, they killed 2 billion of their own kind. They invented weapons that could end all life on their planet. They faced annihilation by their own hands. Paused, letting the images sink in. We thought humans were children among elders. We were wrong. They are not young. They are simply survivors. They survived the worst war any species in this coalition has ever fought, not against alien invaders. Against themselves. The images changed. Now they showed the aftermath. Humans rebuilding. Humans planting trees in ash-covered fields. Humans reaching toward the stars with ships built from the wreckage of their war. They chose to bury their weapons and reach for the stars not because they forgot how to fight, but because they remembered what fighting cost them. They chose peace not from weakness, but from wisdom. They understand the price of war better than any of us, because they paid that price themselves. Turned to face the assembly directly. Lieutenant fought the same way she fought in her own war, with skill, determination, and an absolute refusal to surrender. She is not unique among humans. She is what all humans could be if we ever forced them to become soldiers again, and that perhaps makes them the most valuable allies the coalition has ever had. The assembly was silent for a long moment. Then slowly someone began to clap, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire hall was filled with applause, aliens of every species honoring a woman most of them had never met. When the news reached in the medical bay, she did not know how to react. She had never wanted fame. She had never wanted recognition. She had just wanted to count boxes and live quietly until she died. A coalition official came to her room later that day with an offer. They wanted to give her a command position, a title, resources to train others in the tactics that had saved the station. Listened politely, then she shook her head. "Thank you," she said, "but I do not want a command. I do not want a title. I want to go back to logistics. I want to count boxes and organize supplies and do my job in peace." The official looked confused. "After everything you have done, after saving all those lives." "I did not fight for glory. I did not fight for recognition. I fought so that no one else would have to." She looked out the window at the stars. "I have been a soldier. I do not want to be one again, not unless I have no choice." The official nodded slowly and left. 2 weeks later was released from the medical bay. She walked slowly through the corridors of Helix Prime, still recovering from her wounds. The station was being repaired. Workers filled every hallway, fixing damage, replacing broken systems, restoring what they had destroyed. As she walked, something strange happened. People noticed her, not to ignore her like before, not to dismiss her like before. They nodded at her. They stepped aside to let her pass. They looked at her with respect. An engineer bowed his head as she passed. A scientist nodded politely. A young human worker whispered, "Thank you, ma'am." Did not know what to do with any of it, so she just nodded back, once, twice, again and again, all the way down the corridor. She reached the logistics bay, her old workplace. Everything was almost the same as before, the shelves, the supplies, the tablets and screens, but it felt different now. It felt like home. She picked up her tablet and began checking the inventory. Medical supplies, food rations, fuel cells, everything needed to be reorganized after the attack. Everything needed her attention. Wu found her there an hour later. He watched her work for a moment, then smiled. "Back to counting boxes. Back to counting boxes. Are you happy?" Thought about it, happy was a complicated word. She had lost too much to ever be truly happy. But there was something else, something quieter, something like peace. "I am content," she said finally. "That is enough." Wu nodded. He understood. Better than anyone else on the station, he understood. He picked up a tablet and started helping her check the inventory. They worked together in comfortable silence, two humans surrounded by stars, doing ordinary work in an extraordinary universe. Outside the window, the galaxy stretched into infinity. Somewhere out there were they, retreating to lick their wounds. Somewhere out there were threats that had not yet revealed themselves. Somewhere out there was danger and death and war. But not today. Today there was peace. Today there was healing. Today there was a small woman counting boxes in a supply room, living the quiet life she had earned with blood and sacrifice. Looked out at the stars and thought of Soul, of the friends she had lost, of the 60 days that had changed everything. She thought about what she had told Wu long ago: words mean nothing, actions do. She had lived by those words. She would continue living by them, not as a soldier, not as a hero, just as a woman who knew that the greatest strength was not in fighting, but in choosing when not to fight. The galaxy finally understood what humans were, and finally had the peace she deserved. That was enough. That was everything.